the Lord, everybody. This is here, JT. I am related to you to another podcast from 7,000 Church. We are a church that represents a remnant of prophetic, reserved by the Lord for sound prophetic insight, revelation, and understanding. And so we are elated to be able to join you today with in this bulletin. I want to read to you some scripture, just scripture before we get started today. I want to read some scripture from the book of Acts, chapter 11. This is a prophetic revelation and warning. Book of Acts, chapter 11, verse number 27, verses 27 and 28. Scriptures declare that in these days came prophets from Jerusalem unto Antioch. There stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be great dearth throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. So we see here in the book of Acts that a group of prophets came down to Antioch to strengthen, to confirm, to affirm the church that was in Antioch. And there rose up among this particular group of prophets, a particular prophet by the name of Agabus. And Agabus signified by the Spirit that there should be great dearth throughout the world, that world at that time, their known world. And so a few days ago, the Lord gave me like a prophetic dream. And I've been praying over this prophetic dream. I'm a person, I'm not quick to release things. I've been prophesying, moving into prophetic ministry since I was 12 years old. And so in maturity, or what I perceive to be maturity, I don't move to speak quickly or what I would say presumptuously concerning prophetic revelation, prophetic things. And so this particular prophetic dream, I prayed over it, and I really believe that there is a message to those that would have an ear to hear. In this particular prophetic dream, I spiritualized watching the prophetic dream and also part of this particular prophetic dream. And in this prophetic dream, I was in this particular large building, and there were different sections to this particular building. The different sections, there were different groups of people representing the church, different facets of the church. In this particular dream, I was, trying to locate a restroom. And because I wanted, before I went into service, I wanted to relieve myself. And so I searched and searched and searched, and all the doors, all the signs, monikers that were there for a restroom, none of them were open. And so I was, just frantically trying to find a restroom, and ended up running into someone that I knew in the church, not a part of my church, but that I knew in the church. And they began to converse with me, and I told them, I said, look, I don't mind talking, but right now I'm trying to find a restroom. And so they pointed my direction back to the lobby area. Now, again, this was very diverse. Again, there were different sections, white, black, etc. And so I went back out into the lobby trying to find this restroom. What I can detail and tell you about this particular large space that represented the church was that it was busy, meaning people, it would give you the mind of the busyness of a major airport, where people are moving, people are going. And, it seems like, people are just hustling. There's no real There's no lack spirit. And so this particular space was just very, 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 very busy. Now, in the busyness of it, I never experienced a concentration of people that were concentrated, focused on the Lord per se, but it was busy, very busy space. And so I ended up on the outside of this particular space, church space. I ended up on the outside. And on the outside, I saw many people from the church on the outside. However, also on the outside, there have been these, what I would call familiar spirits. Now, familiar spirits, scripturally, a familiar is an animal that represents how a spirit manifests, how a spirit moves. There are positive familiars, then there are negative familiars. Or there are familiars of God, then there are familiars of darkness. And on this outside, I began to see all of these different familiars, these animals, wild animals, began to appear in spaces that they should have been in. And they just begin to come out of the woodwork, just coming out of everywhere. Crocodiles, alligators, elephants, cheetahs, lions, the commando dragons, just large predators begin to show up. And, I begin to see people begin to taunt, certain of the animals, and the animals would begin to charge and aggressively pursue people. And while myself, I was never in any imminent danger, I beheld people in imminent danger, about to be bitten, about to be consumed. And in the particular dream, I understood that I had weapons at my disposal, that if I needed to defend myself, I had something to defend myself with. Now, after days of prayer and meditation, what I really believe that this dream is saying to me is that it is imperative for the people of God to stay in the house, to stay in the abode of the church. It's kind of like what Paul said in Acts, I believe it's Acts chapter maybe 27, about Euroclidon. He advised the people not to set sail, but they did it anyway. And the storm arose, the spiritual storm arose, and tore the boat to pieces, ship to pieces. However, Paul admonished the people, except you abide in the ship, you're going to be lost, except you abide. It tore the ship to pieces, but as the word of the Lord that came to Paul, the people were saved because they abode, because they held on to the ship. I want to say to you, those of you that have an ear to hear, that it is important that we stay in the confines of the church, the ecclesia, the called out gathering, that we don't find ourselves on the outside of protection, that we don't find ourselves on the exterior of God's divine providence, which is the church, which Jesus Christ reigns as the head over. And so we must find ourselves through the imperfection, even though it seems like the church doesn't have places to relieve yourself of the burden, to relieve yourself of the weights, the sins. The church doesn't have that the proper places in order. Some things that should be open to the people aren't necessarily open to the people. And so what it creates a desire to search and to seek after things that we're not finding inside. So we go outside, but then there is a wild spirit that has been invited in. There is a wild spirit. There is predatory spirits that have been invited into the space of God's people. And so it is imperative that we stay inside. Yes, inside is imperfect. It doesn't have all of the amenities, all of the things that we need to be comfortable, all the things that we need to be satiated. However, throughout the busyness of the church, even though the church is busy with things a lot of times that don't pertain to the Lord, the church, the institution, the organism is still ordained by God. And there is protection in what is ordained by God. When men and women are imperfect, we must remember that we serve a perfect God. So the people in the structure, in the ecclesia, in the called out assembly, yes, we're imperfect. Yes, we are. Sometimes we can repel one another. We can push one another away. It is imperative that no matter the storm, no matter the rain, no matter what you're facing that is trying to push you out of the ark of safety, it is imperative that we remain inside. Inside. Used to sing that song, coming up, come on in the inside. It's going to rain. And so it is imperative for those of you that know the name, for those of you that are saved by the blood of the Lamb that took away the sin of the world, those of you that have come out of the kingdom of darkness and abide in the kingdom of light, the kingdom of the dear Son of God. It is imperative that we remain in the church. Remain in the church. Don't go outside. There is great danger outside. There are predators outside, and they are sent. They have been allowed. They're in the outside of our spaces. They're close. So it is imperative that we stay inside. What does that look like right now? It is imperative that we stay inside and we don't go to YouTube and we don't go to TikTok or Instagram for church. It is imperative that we stay in the confines of the church, the ministry that you have been called to abide in. Stay there. Don't go out here mixing with these unclean spirits, these predatory spirits now that are guised as ministers, guised as prophets, prognosticators, those reading of the signs. Don't find yourself seeking and playing with these familiar spirits. No, stay inside, stay protected. It's not perfect, but it's protection. Again, it's not complete, but it's protection. It is protection from the wicked one. It is protection from, again, the familiars of darkness that come to consume your time, your thoughts, your ideas, that come to corrupt. And so we must, in this hour, remain vigilant. We must cling to the church. Again, when you're clinging to something, that means something's trying to pull you away. When you're clinging to something, that means that something is trying to tear you apart from. So I admonish you, hold fast, hold fast. This is a moment of prophetic revelation and warning. Hold fast to the church. Hold fast to the church. Don't find yourself eating out of from the hand of every supposed shepherd. No, stop going around eating out of the hands of every shepherd. Because a lot of these people are not shepherds of the Lord. They're not shepherding the flock of God. They're not pastors, shepherds after the Lord's heart. And so it's important that we remain in the church, that we remain in the fellowship in these last and these evil days. It has been a moment with the seer, AJC, and I pray that you have received something from this broadcast. Until we speak again, shalom, shalom.